Hello. So, keeping on the theme of boxing, I want to kind of ask an open question, and that is Floyd Mayweather Jr. the greatest pound for pound fighter ever? Now, this is a very philosophical question, and it's one that requires a good deal of thought. One of the things about boxing, which I do find so compelling, in my last video, I was, I guess, a bit negative. But one thing I've always found compelling about boxing is more than any other sport, it lends itself to rankings, to debate about what constitutes a great fighter in a particular weight division. And of course, that's why the concept of pound for pound came up, i.e., regardless of weight. Now, I don't think anyone would dispute that Floyd Mayweather is a great fighter. I think even his critics, if you pushed him, they would have to concede that he has something. I happen to believe he is a great fighter. Do I believe he is the greatest of all time? I'm not sure. I think he's a very strong claim to be. I think there's only a very small handful of fighters who could really reach that echelon of that sort of claim. Sugar Ray Robinson, of course, um, has long been considered the greatest of all time. But Robinson's record wasn't perfect. He had quite a few losses, including the guys that today aren't that well remembered. Um, but no question about it, Sugar Ray Robinson was a legend. Muhammad Ali is generally considered the greatest heavyweight, but again, Ali's record was far from perfect. Ali fought the best of his era and beat them, but let's not forget he also lost to a seven fight Leon Spinks. Um, I have no problem with Ali being called the greatest heavyweight. So I think that's a very strong claim. Joe Lewis would probably be the only real competition for that. But I don't believe Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter of all time. That accolade's been thrown around since he passed away. Greatest heavyweight, yes. Greatest fighter, probably not. When Floyd Mayweather made that claim that he was greater than Ali, he got a lot of backlash for it. Obviously from Ali's family, but also from fans. Actually, when you look at the records, Mayweather's record is more perfect than Ali's. Now, people will say, "Oh, but that's just a perfect record doesn't necessarily mean anything." Well, that would be true if it was, say, 50 wins of unknown fighters. But let's not forget, Floyd Mayweather has beaten some of the greatest fighters in history, Hall of Famers. Um, Manny Pacquiao, okay, I know there's controversy around that fight. I'm a Pacquiao fan. I'm disappointed that the result was the way it was. But a win is a win. In the end of the day, on a boxer's record, a win is a win. Um, uh, Goodness knows where do we begin? Juan Manuel Marquez, Canelo Alvarez. Um, who else do we have? Diego Corrales, Sugar Shane Mosley. These are all big names in the sport, you know. So no one can accuse Floyd Mayweather of not fighting um, known fighters, right? Um, Now, one of the main things about Mayweather is his style, is his defensive technique. It really pisses me off when people say it's running. Okay, that's from people who either they're frankly fanboys of another fighter, such as Manny Pacquiao, or they're just ignorant about the sport and fine girls as well. Um, the sort of rubbish that people come out with, it's nonsense. I can appreciate that people don't like Floyd's style. It's not the most exciting style, so I appreciate that his fights are not the most exciting. But that strategy of defensiveness is actually core to the sport. If you want to see a brawl, I may have just watched Hagler Hearns. Hell of a first round, right? But if you just want two guys beating crap out of each other, then watch a street fight. Boxing's a sport. It's not about street fighting. And I get it that a real grueling toe to toe match is more exciting, you know? Um, but running, I mean, that's just nonsensical. If Floyd Mayweather was running, he wouldn't be in the ring in the first place. That insinuates cowardice. And I think that is a very slanderous claim to make against any prize fighter. Because by nature, boxers have to be brave to go into that ring in the first place. Every time a boxer, professional or amateur, enters the ring, he's taking a risk. And when I think back to that documentary I saw on Gerald McClellan, my thought is, well, do these fans want Floyd Mayweather to end up like Gerald McClellan? Be happy. They may say he gets paid a lot of money. That's true. Mayweather gets astronomical amounts of money. So, and I don't particularly like his personality. I don't think he's the best ambassador for the sport. Um, I'm not. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Mayweather fan, but I do have the respect to know that he is a great fighter, a great fighter, and very possibly the greatest fighter of all time. I mean, he has a perfect record. He's probably the greatest defensive fighter of all time. And really, when you push people, the only way they could criticize Mayweather is because he runs, except that he doesn't run. That's defensive. I wouldn't even say strategy. It's core to boxing. Defend yourself at all times. And you get guys like Manny Pacquiao and Julio Cesar Chavez who have that aggressive, um, forward fighting style, which is great and it makes for great viewing. And they're great fighters. But boxing is a professional martial art. It's not street fight. And I think the fans who say things like Floyd Mayweather, run Floyd run, this sort of thing, it pisses me off. Any sort of disrespect towards a professional fighter in that way pisses me off. And needless to say, these are faceless cards who hide behind a computer screen, and in most cases would never do it themselves. Um, so when you really assess his legacy, in the coming century, there will probably be fighters who might have a claim to being better than Floyd. That's history. There will always be a debate, and I don't think there will ever be a concrete science to this, and that's what makes it so interesting, because there's always a debate to be made. If Mayweather fought Robinson, what would happen? Um, I personally think that Mayweather has the smartness um, to outsmart almost any fighter ever. I really do think he's that good. I'm not going to go so far as to say I believe he is the greatest fighter of all time. Um, Sugar Ray Robinson, like I say, I mean, he had far more fights. 50 fights is kind of average in terms of if you pile up the number of fights that fighters have. So, for example, if Floyd had another 10 fights, what if he lost two or three? As for him crossing into MMA, or rather, I should say Conor McGregor going into boxing, well, remember the time that Ali fought Antonio Inoki? Um, that got a lot of criticism. Didn't exactly do Ali any favors at the time, but Ali's seen as a legend today. So Mayweather is never going to be a cultural figure in the way that Muhammad Ali is. Mayweather doesn't stand out as a cultural figure. I mean, he's not America's most famous sportsman, and he's not. He very rarely gets involved in politics, if ever. He's not a cultural figure, but he is an outstanding, all-time great fighter, and I wish people would just recognize that. Even if you don't like Floyd's personality, at least be honest enough to admit that he is a great fighter. If you don't like that defensive style, don't call it running. Just say you don't like that approach. But it is not running, because running would be going into a ring and running out of the ring. That's running, or more to the point, it wouldn't be entering the ring in the first place. Why would a guy enter a ring if he's scared? No one forces him to do it. So I think people are very ignorant when it comes to this. Floyd Mayweather is certainly not my favorite fighter, but is he the greatest fighter of those I've seen? Very possibly. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts.